Getting ready to take on spring? Make your first move with the reliable performance and power of Steel battery tools. From hedge trimmers and mowers to string trimmers and more, right now you can save $50 on select battery tool sets. Real Steel. Offer valid on select AK system sets through June 16, 2024. See participating retailer for details.
Live Nation presents Concert Week. Now through May 14th, get $25 tickets to over 5,000 shows. That's up to 75% off a summer full of your favorite artists like 21 Savage, Alanis Morissette, Cage the Elephant, Celeste Barber, Dierks Bentley, Fade, Hootie and the Blowfish, Janet Jackson, Kids Bop Kids, Meghan Trainor, Bissell Pluma, Sarah McLachlan. Get tickets to more than 5,000 summer shows for just $25. On sale now through May 14th. Visit LiveNation.com/Concert Week to learn more and plan your summer with Sean Paul, Sum 41, 30 Seconds to Mars, and Two Door Cinema Club.
It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
On Giants.com.
I like it, I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk, and we're joined by friend of the program. We've been probably doing this, Rick, for probably almost 10 years now. Ric Serritella, who has about 2 million jobs. So I'm going to let him tell you where you can find all his stuff because I've lost track.
Yeah, John, how you doing, man? Been a great another draft run. Our 23rd year of draft coverage at the NFL Draft Bible, which can be found over at allaccessfootball.com. You know, we're easy to find. You can follow us on X for all the latest and the greatest stuff. And looking forward to chopping it up, Big Blue style. You know, we go deep.
We do, and Rick's also scouting out there. He's writing magazines. He's doing everything. He's
Yes.
all over the place doing a lot of work. So we're going to work backwards here because we've covered the draft class a lot, but we haven't really gotten into the undrafted free agent class. And with rookie minicamp getting going this weekend, we want to kind of dive into them first. Then we'll give Rick a chance to talk about the draft class too. So we're going to go one by one here in terms of the guys that the Giants have signed, Rick. So let's start with John Giles, wide receiver out of West Florida. You're familiar with the Argonauts. I'm not sure you're familiar with the West Florida Argonauts, though. You're probably more the Canadian variety, but big kid, almost 6'3", 220 pounds.
Yes, and I'm going to give you a funny John Giles story in a second, but I want to talk about the undrafted free agent process real quickly here, because on any given season, data tells us that between 27 to 33% of every 53-man roster consists of undrafted free agents. So I think it's, a very important element in terms of your scouting department and guys that fall through the cracks. This is really how the bottom of your roster shapes up. And a guy like John Giles, I get a call about halfway through the season from our general manager at the Edmonton Elks. He says, "Hey, there's a guy down in West Florida. I need you to go check him out. He's a big, long, physical wide receiver dominating the D2 level." So I go check him out, John. And he is, he's big. He's 6'2" and 6'8", 220 pounds, and clearly was faster than the level of competition down there. Now, kind of a one-trick pony, right? Game speed, a lot of just fly patterns, just dominating with speed, can go up vertically, makes those contested catches. Love it. Transfer from Virginia Union. Now, physical off the line of scrimmage. His get off is strong. He's a raw route runner, right? So if the Giants keep him around, he's probably gonna have to stick on the practice squad, learn how to run extended route tree. But I'll tell you what, we did wind up putting him on our neg list up in Edmonton. So those who aren't familiar with the Canadian Football League, how that works, if he does not last in the NFL and decides to come up north to play in Canada, Edmonton actually owns his rights.
And D2 program, over 60 catches, over 1,200 yards, double-digit touchdowns. Again, a very productive player at a 4.54 40-yard dash. So,
and I will say one thing.
Yeah.
Another thing, there's a guy there, and I'm watching number 0, Giles, on West Florida. There's another kid coming next year, number 6, almost in the same mold. So keep an eye. West Florida, there's something in the water down there.
Well, there's a lot of kids coming out of Florida looking for places to play football, so I'm not surprised. Let's stick with the wide receivers here, Rick. And a guy that I frankly had trouble finding a lot of info on is Ayer Asante, a wide receiver out of Wyoming. He's the opposite, right? Smaller guy. Not even 5'10", 181 pounds. Not super productive, but you could see some of the traits.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was down at the Tropical Bowl down in Orlando during the All-Star circuit, and this kid created a little bit of buzz. There were some scouts asking me, like, is he going to get drafted? I said, he's on the fringe. New Jersey product, Franklin Township, played ball at Jersey City, St. Peter's, went to two state championships. I want you to think Kadarius Toney from a talent level standpoint in terms of how he would be utilized, because he's an all-purpose guy. He's going to line up in the backfield. He's going to be used on end arounds. I think where he might be able to provide some competition in training camp is in the return game, right? Because he's an excellent punt returner. You got the new kickoff rule. You mentioned he's undersized. He came in at 5'9" and 6/8 inches. 4.5240. One thing else I wanted to mention about this Giants undrafted free agent class and their draft class, they went with athleticism across the board. If you notice that explosiveness, athleticism, all these guys have for the most part tested well. And Ayer Asante is another one, 36-inch vert. Okay. And he's a guy that is going to really have to work his way on special teams. But I think he's got a shot. There was another kid from Central Michigan they had in camp a couple years ago, he reminds me of. So I think he'll get an opportunity to stick around, see if he can showcase some of that explosiveness. But hey, under the radar guy, made a buzz for himself down there at the Tropical Bowl, local product. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, 8 kick returns for 166 yards. He was a returner throughout his years in school. And he ran a 4.14 shuttle, too. So another good testing mark in terms of his agility. All right, those are the only two skill guys. So let's stick on the offensive side of the ball. North Dakota State, Rick, that is not a Power 5 team, but the way they've played, them in South Dakota State now has really developed a lot of really good NFL players. Jake Kubas, an offensive tackle, 6'3", you talk about a good athlete. He had a 9.44 RAS score. For people that don't know what that is, I mean, he basically tested in the 94th percentile for all offensive tackles tested over the past 30 years. And again, just a lot of good traits, and he comes from a really good program.
Yeah, again, athleticism, right? We talked about John Giles, the wide receiver, who jumped 34 inches. Well, here comes Kubas, 100 pounds heavier. He jumped 31 inches, John. That's so, crazy. He's got crazy ups, athleticism, 3-year starter. At one point, he actually had 41 consecutive starts there for the Bison until injury ended that one. Mostly at the guard spot, right? So he's the guy now that is going to probably be one of these pulling guards, gets into the second level with that speed, quickness, athleticism, agility. Now, the issue here is the girth, right? Like, he comes from the FCS, not quite the best strength and conditioning program. So what I'm seeing here is probably a guy, you redshirt him on the practice squad, get him with that NFL strength and conditioning program, bulk him up a little bit. He did do 28 bench press reps, so the strength is there. He just needs to get the frame bigger for the next level. But I think a guy who could probably be like a swingman interior, maybe the Giants test him out at center, see if he can snap the ball a little bit. That would definitely extend his chances to get a longer look-see in training camp.
Yeah, it's 6'4", 308. That's going to be a little slender to be in there pounding with guards off the top. You're right. He's going to have to work on that a little bit. 33-inch arms, though, that's very good length, especially if you're going to play inside. And you mentioned a 3-year starter at right guard last year. According, I think PFF had him for no sacks allowed and only 10 pressures. So certainly a productive player there. Then you have Marcellus Johnson out of Missouri, 6'4", 313, over 33-inch arms. An ankle injury kept him out a lot of 2023, Rick. But if he would have played in 2023, this guy probably would have been drafted.
Yeah, so he came over from Eastern Michigan, where he did start for 2 seasons. So he had 19 starts at Eastern Michigan, came to Missouri this past season, where his brother played, Eric Johnson, who was a 4th or 5th round pick, I believe, by the Colts. We had him out at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl a couple of years back. So the bloodlines are strong. You mentioned the arm length, right? 33-inch arms and a 7-foot wingspan, right? So he's got the length to survive at the next level. Now, my understanding is he was the highest paid undrafted free agent in terms of guaranteed money. I think they gave him $170,000 guaranteed. So what does that mean? He's going to have every opportunity to stick. The Giants did not use an offensive a draft pick on an offensive lineman. As you know, they decided to kind of rebuild through free agency. So to me, this is their developmental swing tackle that they stash on the practice squad, try to bring them along. NFL bloodlines, again, extreme athleticism when you talk about these players, 30 bench press reps and a 31.5-inch vertical at 313 pounds. Again, quite the impressive athletic specimen.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Yeah, absolutely. And you hope with Carmen Brasil, the Giants' new offensive line coach, you can develop those two players down the road. All right, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball, Rick. We'll start at the line of scrimmage. Casey Rogers, and again, it's a theme. Really good athlete.
Yeah, he came over from Nebraska, started his first year at Oregon, was more of a rotational guy this past season. But, man, when you're a 300-pounder and you run 4.86 in the 40-yard dash, I mean, that is rare. Now, he's got a 35-inch vertical jump, which is unbelievable, right? He's jumping as high as Yair Asante from Wyoming that we just talked about. So, again, explosion, lower body, quick off the get off. He does now show some interior pass rush, which is where the value is, right? So he can get after the quarterback. I think he had 6 sacks over the last 2 seasons, a bunch of plays behind the line of scrimmage, so he can blow up the backfield, wreak havoc, get after the quarterback. Again, young, athletic, developmental guy. You want to bring these guys along. Hopefully they're not playing as soon as this season, but again, it's the traits, right? The Giants did a great job identifying players who have the skill set and traits that they're looking for to slide into their scheme.
Yeah, and his agility numbers were really good too. And I think this just screams 3 technique to me, Rick. And that's a spot where the Giants, I think, would have liked to add somebody. Losing Leonard Williams in the trade last year, they really didn't bring in a true 3 technique this offseason. Yeah. And I think this is a guy that at least fits that profile that you think maybe you can develop into a player that can help you there.
Yeah, and another somewhat local guy. He's from upstate New York there in Syracuse. So another feel-good story for fans to root for.
All right, hopefully I got the pronunciation right here. You got linebacker out of LSU, Ovi Agufo, and if the Giants are looking for some pass rush help, he might be able to give it to you, even though we might be a little bit undersized.
Yeah, he's got the pedigree, right? He started at Notre Dame, transferred to Texas, finishes at LSU. That's the modern day NFL draft prospect, by the way. 5 years ago, you would have been red flagged for that, but now it's kind of common practice. 20.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks. So to your point, he can bring some of that pass rush ability. He played that jack kind of strong side linebacker role for the Tigers. So, he can drop back in coverage a little bit and cover. He can get after the quarterback, maybe a guy that can be moved around as a versatile backup. I think that's what you're getting here. Again, big time pedigree. So those are the kind of guys you want to roll the dice on when you're looking at those undrafted free agents.
And then Alex Johnson, defensive back at UCLA. And the thing that jumps out to me is 5 interceptions last year. So he's got a nose for the ball.
Yeah, again, another one of these guys, the Giants paid big money in terms of guarantees for an undrafted guy, $115,000 guaranteed is my understanding. So that means they like him. And he's going to have every opportunity now to win a spot or stick around on the practice squad, mostly a special teamer there throughout his career. Got elevated to a starting role this past season, exploded onto the radar with 5 interceptions. Didn't do enough to get drafted, right? 6 foot and 4/8 inches, 4.48 40, 37-inch vert. So again, the athleticism is there. $185 at that frame, that size, that height. Probably wants to add a little bit of bulk there, but when you talk about nose for the football, ball instincts, again, athleticism. Probably could play inside, outside, so versatility there. I think with the special teams element, this is a kid who has an opportunity to make the 53-man roster, contribute on special teams, add some versatility there as a cornerback 5, and they gave him that guaranteed money. So keep an eye out on this young man.
Yeah, and look, the Giants drafted one corner, but there's still a wide open competition really for both those cornerback spots. They just brought in veteran David Long Jr. So he'll have an opportunity. We'll see if he can earn his way onto the field. You mentioned specials there. And Rick, the last guy's a special teamer from Rutgers in Jersey. Give us the lowdown on the kicker the Giants brought in.
Yeah, well, you might find him at the local Irish pub there. He's from Ireland, so maybe some international pathway program eligibility here is my guess. Set a school record at Rutgers this past year with 40 touchbacks, so he's got a boot. He can kick it a distance. Now his longest field goal this past year was only 49 yards. Again, playing in Jersey. You got that northeast weather, especially late in the season, but he was pretty accurate. 12 of 18, his lone year in Rutgers. He actually transferred from DT Chowan and kind of made a name for himself at Rutgers. So we'll see. I don't know if he is going to stick around with the special teams and that the Giants already have. But again, if he is eligible for that IPP, not a bad insurance policy to have hanging around.
Yeah, and with that extended practice squad, Graham Gano's a veteran kicker. You probably want to save his leg at least in the spring a little bit, especially coming off his injury last year. So he's a guy that can obviously take some of those reps. All right, let's get to the drafted class here, Rick. But first, I want to remind fans that the Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giants fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. All right, let's start. Let's work backwards. We went undrafted free agents first. Let's start the last pick, and we'll work our way into the first one. So we're going to start with Darius Musow, the linebacker out of UCLA, Rick. And this is a guy, you watch him on tape, he's twitchy. You kind of like his fast reaction stuff, a little undersized. He screams, start off on special teams, and hope you can work him into the defense somehow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He can be a special teams contributor from day one. I saw him on one of these all-star games. He was lined wide out, like 7 technique coming off the edge, right? So I think
he can blitz. He can blitz.
Yeah, he's got some get off now, and I think that's where, like, if he does develop a role at the next level, it's going to be that situational pass rusher. Throw him in there on third down, and hey, go get the quarterback because he is quick. He's got that bend. He can dip around, get underneath. Like you said, very twitchy. I think there's, again, a lot of athletic upside here. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but man, when I saw him at the All-Star game and that burst off the line of scrimmage, we all turned to each other and said, hey, make a note.
Yeah, I'm not sure he has the long speed you're looking for, but that short area stuff and the start and stop, I think it's impressive. And when you're playing that position around the line of scrimmage, to me, that's almost more important.
Correct.
All right, let's go this would be round number 5, Tyrone Tracy, running back out of Purdue by way of Iowa, by way of wide receiver, and now running back. And he was a fun watch on tape, Rick, watching him before the draft. It reminds me of like, you have like a very athletic kid, but he never played a sport before, and you just throw him in there and he starts running around and he succeeds, but you're not quite sure he knows how he's succeeding, but he is. And that's what Tyrone Tracy, and that's supposed to be a compliment. That's how he looks at running back to me. He just is a really good athlete.
Yeah, a tadpole, right? Figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, this is probably my personal favorite selection, and I think this kid is going to really become a fan favorite. In fact, you talk about the multi-dimensional ability similar to a Saquon Barkley, right? And I'm not talking about he is Saquon Barkley, but what I'm saying is, you mentioned the wide receiver background. He's an incredible pass catcher. He could even line up in the slot. He brings return experience as well. So when you talk about doing all these things, you've got a 4-down back who can play all 3 downs. He can play special teams. And I'm telling you what, I might be going out on a limb here, but I think when you take a look at the Giants' backfield in terms of all-purpose yards, I would not be surprised if Tyrone Tracy is sitting atop the leaderboard on this Giants roster. I really think he's going to carve out a very big niche and a big role in this Giants offense.
Yeah, Rick, I'm curious, talking to coaches and scouts, you mentioned the return game. To me, I think Tyrone Tracy is built perfectly to be your kick returner in this new kick return system. Talking to scouts and coaches, what type of player do you think they are looking for in that kick return role? Are they looking for more of a running back type, more of your, tiny slot wide receiver type, or is it going to vary from team to team?
No, well, so I've studied this kickoff rule in the XFL extensively. So what you want is a guy with burst that can explode through the first line of scrimmage and make a quick, decisive decision, right? You want a guy with vision that gets through the hole because remember now, there is no second and third level,
Yeah.
right? So you have to create that wedge. You have to create that. And so if you can bust through that line of scrimmage, there's really not busters on the other side coming down. It's kind of neutralized, the speed and the strength. Like everybody's just kind of in that 5-10 yard short area radius. So if you got a guy like Tracy who can bust through that first line and just go, baby, go, that's exactly what you want. A guy with vision, quickness, quick decision making, doesn't hesitate. You don't want that pity patter now. You just want to hit that hole and explode.
It almost feels like you want a guy that would be good at in the outside zone scheme, right? That kind of just probes, hits the thing, and then boom, gets upfield, one cut runner, right?
Yeah, and I think you see a lot of that too. And we mentioned the undrafted kid, Ayer Asante, right? So they have a backup option. If Tracy does get elevated to a starting role or there's an injury, they got a contingency plan as well.
And we'll get to the Giants' first round pick, boy, who in a big spot. If you want to put him back there to return a kick or two, I would not necessarily have a problem with that either. But we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, let's keep sliding back here. Theo Johnson, it was the Giants' first day 3 pick, Rick. And, we've kind of talked about how they drafted a lot of really good athletes. And he's on top of the list, 98th percentile tight end wise. He's got the frame, he's got size, he's got the athleticism. He just came from an offense at Penn State that didn't utilize him or really the passing game for that matter a ton.
Well, I'll tell you, John, I went up to the Penn State training camp and I said, holy golly, they got about 3 or 4 tight ends just hanging out that could play at the next level. In fact, Dinkins, the former Giant, has a son up there, the tight end. Keep a lookout for him. But yeah, they have so many competent tight ends there at Penn State. The thing with Theo Johnson is he's just raw. Again, we talked about, the route running there. He's athletic as heck. He's fast, but, he's got to sharpen some of those cuts coming in and out of his breaks. That's why he fell to day 3. But when you talk about upside in this year's tight end class, he has all those physical attributes that the one Darren Waller possessed coming out of college. Now, not as sharp as a route runner because Waller was a wide receiver coming out. I think Theo Johnson is going to kind of be baptism by fire here. They're going to need him to play some kind of role early on, I believe. So he's going to have to learn on the fly. He's got a lot to learn between now and training camp, but he's a young, bright man, Canadian born, by the way, and I think he'll do well.
Now, he's big. He's got a big frame, Rick, and Penn State did ask him to play in line. What's his upside as a blocker, in your opinion?
I think it's still a work in progress, right? Like he's so big that it's kind of a struggle for him to stay low and get down in that crouch and really drive the opponent. So that's something else he's going to just have to polish up the technique.
All right, let's jump to round 3. Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky, Rick. And I said this throughout the process. I had a lot of trouble this year stacking day 2 corners. Nobody tested off the charts. Everyone was kind of in that high 4.4, low 4.5 area. Some of the guys that didn't test well had good tape. The guys that didn't have good tape tested a little bit better. So I love Mike Sanser still. He was my number 1 day 2 corner. But once I got past him, a lot of these guys for me were kind of jumbled up. And I liked what Phillips did because he was multifaceted. He played inside. He played outside. He was tough. He tried to tackle. He was physical. What were your thoughts on Phillips coming out of Kentucky?
Ooh, I'll tell you what, I really wasn't too familiar with him until we got to the draft process, right, into January and February. And I can't remember if I saw him at the Senior Bowl or the Combine.
He was Senior Bowl.
Okay, so I just remember being down there on the field. And sometimes, John, like you've seen so many guys in your head that you just like, when you see it, you know it. And like this dude's change of direction, instincts, his reaction skills, to me, they were off the charts. I said, man, there's like something rare and unique about this guy's, his reaction, his change of direction. Now, to your point, we've become accustomed now in these draft classes, like almost every corner is 6 foot and runs in the 4.4. Like it's unbelievable how much it's evolved. So I think Phillips came in at like 5'11" and 4.52, which is, downgraded in the modern day NFL, right? Not the ideal height, not the ideal speed, but definitely adequate enough to hang. I think he's going to be a rookie impact contributor for the Big Blue.
You like him inside or you like him outside better?
Probably inside. I think he starts there and works his way out.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's how the Giants going to use him too. All right, let's stay in the secondary. Let's go to Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota. And I don't understand why some people would have other safeties ahead of him, because I think other guys are more adept at playing man if you want to have your safety play a little bit more man coverage, Rick. But the Giants are going to play a lot of zone. They play a lot of split safety. Shane Bowen played a lot of split safety at Tennessee. And I think when you look at Nubin and his ability to read the quarterback and anticipate and get to the football and play the position with his mind and be a cerebral player, I think you have to love what he brings to the field as a experienced guy that played over and started over 40 games at Minnesota.
Yeah, man, row the boat. I'll tell you, I'm so happy he came to the Giants because this was one of my favorite players in the entire draft. He's got an open invite to come down fishing with me here at the Jersey Shore because he's a bait and hook guy. He's a bait and hook guy. He will bait the quarterback now and hook that interception. I think he had something like 13 career interceptions, unbelievable ball instincts. He truly is a coach on the field. When you talk about all that experience he brings to the table, you look at how he communicates pre-snap coverage, making sure his teammates are in the right spot. Now, I think he struggled with some injuries this year, so his draft stock was downgraded. But, man, I'll tell you what, number one safety on the board, on my draft board, and I think the Giants got a good one here, man. Plug-and-play starter from day one. Tyler Nubin, man. Ooh, defensive playmaker. I love it.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New You moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Giant fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens, named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by the Banker. As the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Huddle, Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. All right, now let's finish with the crown jewel here, Rick. When you're picking sixth overall, you're going to expect to get a really good football player. And I think the Giants did do that with Malik Neighbors, a guy, and the way I phrased it, best player in the class, any position with the ball in his hands. So give me your breakdown of Neighbors as a player on the field.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he could do it all, right? He could take the top off the defense. He can operate in space. You just want to get the ball in his hands and let him do work. I mean, the Giants failed to really get a true number one wide receiver here in recent years. Jalen Hyatt was a guy where I'm not sure they really know how to use him because, like, he exploded. He had a big game. Then he went disappearing. So I think the addition of Neighbors is also going to help the development of Hyatt because he's not going to be dependent upon so much to come in and like, hey, we need you to make plays. No, you line up two guys now. You got two speed burners who can stretch the field. You put them on the opposite ends. And now you have some weapons that can stretch the field that don't necessarily have to do work in the short and intermediate game. And you can put points up on the board in the blink of an eye. That's been missing since Odell Beckham Jr., right? So I get the LSU appeal. I mean, I'm a big fan of Neighbors. I think this guy has the potential to be a Pro Bowl caliber player in year one if the quarterback can get him the football.
Yeah, and look, and I think he's a force multiplier in the wide receiver room. You mentioned it, right? I think he makes Hyatt better. And I'm curious to see how they use him and Wan'Dale Robinson, who both can play inside, and Neighbors has the flexibility to go outside as well. They're both good run after the catch. I'm curious to see how those two guys will work together on the field.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of guys who can operate in space now. And again, they've acquired the speed, the athleticism on the roster, but the speed at wide receiver position, that tells me they're going to test defenses downfield a little bit more, make them respect that deep ball, and that opens up the running game, right? And I think that's what the route the Giants really have to go.
Yeah, and I heard those same whispers about Neighbors that you did. And I've asked, we had a bunch of people from LSU come on our show, talk about it, and everyone has pretty much said that, yeah, we didn't experience that with him. So the reviews that I've gotten from people that are around him at LSU have been positive. And I think the Giants and Brian Dable have created a pretty good environment here in order to try to help these guys along. So if he can realize all that talent, I think right away he's going to be the Giants' leading target getter, and I think he can be a real impact player right away. So your overall thoughts, Rick, on the Giants class and kind of how they went about their business this year?
Yeah, I thought, like, if I was giving a report card grade, which we all like to do, I'd give it a B. You know, obviously, I think it's a 5-year window before you can truly grade a draft class. But you talk about limited picks and making the most with those picks. They identified the offensive line need, I think, in the offseason. So they kind of took that off the draft board, said, hey, let's operate within, the skill positions. Let's build up some of that defensive depth. So overall, I think they found themselves two really quality starters in Neighbors and Newbin, which, picking with just 5 picks, I think if you land 2 starters, special teams contributor, and are able to accumulate some depth, it's a solid draft.
And then I should ask this you off the top, considering we started the undrafted free agents. But coming into this process, Rick, a lot of people told me that it was going to be a tougher undrafted free agent class just because so many collegians went back to school with the extra COVID year, NIL, and stuff like that. Did you find that like the back end of this draft, around 6 and 7, and then the UDFA class was a little bit shallower than in most years?
I've heard this too. I don't know if I subscribe to that philosophy, John.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah, I just think that every year we see guys in the late rounds and the undrafted, they go on, they start. It's really just about doing the due diligence, doing the homework, really knowing these guys. I think there is somewhat of what I noticed in terms of just older prospects, just a lot of 25-year-old rookies, guys who are going to be 26 years old. We're going to see another year or two of this, like Cam Rising is a 7th-year senior quarterback. I mean, these things were unheard of, but because of that COVID-19, the eligibility combined with the NIL and the transfer portal, you're seeing, amateurism is no more. It's basically a professional game at the collegiate level. So, when my final year, we didn't have the NFLPA Bowl this past season, but our last year doing it 2 years ago, we lost about 30 or 40 guys that were like day 3 fringe players that went back and got the NIL money. They played for, 50,000, 150,000 and exhausted that eligibility. And I think you're going to continue to see more of that.
All right. The final question. I know you haven't done like your full review of the draft, but just from watching it the way you did, anything stick out at you? Anything strike you that you would like to get off your chest about what happened on the 2024 NFL draft?
From just an overall league perspective?
You can take it from any perspective you like, my friend. Anything on your mind?
Buckle up. I'm a big Michael Penix fan, and I think what the Atlanta Falcons did was a stroke of genius. You get a guy like Kirk Cousins, who's the ultimate hold the fort guy. You want to be competitive? You want to be a contender? Cool. Let's go get Kirk Cousins because he's going to elevate our competition level. Now, have we forgotten? This is not a primetime performer, literally. He's only won 1 playoff game in 12 years, so he can take you only so far, in my opinion. You got a kid in Penix, to me, who can make all the throws, who wins from the pocket. He's the best pocket passer in the NFL draft. That still wins in the NFL last time I checked. So now you've got a guy that doesn't need to be forced into the starting role. You can hand the keys to the Cadillac over when he's ready. And oh, by the way, you can probably still recoup a first-round pick, if not more, for Kirk Cousins if that scenario happens. So I thought what the Atlanta Falcons did was an awesome move. They set themselves up for the short term to compete for the division, and now they have the long-term future, a guy that I can rest my head on the pillow envisioning Michael Penix holding a Vince Lombardi trophy because, Kirk, I love you, but you're not it.
See, I love the varying perspectives. Rick, awesome stuff. Once again, tell the folks where they can find all your good stuff.
Yeah, allaccessfootball.com. I'll be up in Canada with the Edmonton Elks, the training camp going on there. And, on the Twitterverse, on X, at Ric Serritella. Always appreciate you having me on. We've been doing this for quite some time. And I'm sure I'll see you at rookie camp, mini camp, training camp, somewhere in between, John.
Always love chatting with you, Rick. Always a pleasure. Ric Serritella, All Access Football. Check it out. Thanks for joining us on the Giants Huddle podcast, everybody. Brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. We'll have a report on what happened at rookie minicamp next week as we continue to dive into this Giants draft class. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Live Nation presents Concert Week. Now through May 14th, get $25 tickets to over 5,000 shows. That's up to 75% off a summer full of your favorite artists like 21 Savage, Alanis Morissette, Cage the Elephant, Celeste Barber, Dierks Bentley, Fade, Hootie and the Blowfish, Janet Jackson, Kids Bop Kids, Meghan Trainor, Bissell Pluma, Sarah McLachlan. Get tickets to more than 5,000 summer shows for just $25. Until now through May 14th. Visit LiveNation.com/Concert Week to learn more and plan your summer with Sean Paul, Sum 41, 30 Seconds to Mars, and Two Door Cinema Club.
I'm so excited to tell you JCPenney and country music singer-songwriter Walker Hayes are partnering together on a new limited-time men's collection for the everyday guy. What I love about Walker Hayes is his laid-back nature. He's a family man and being a country megastar while also having 7 kids. You know he likes to keep his style cool and casual. This new collection is perfect for the guy living the t-shirt life or someone wanting some fresh options that feel just as good. It's easy to wear, affordable styles that celebrate the ultimate family man, along with the quality, durability, and sensibility dads appreciate. Available online Saturday, May 4th at jcp.com and in-store Thursday, May 16th. Just in time for Father's Day. Limited time only. JCPenney, make it count.